Hello and welcome to A Game of One's Own, a podcast dedicated to solo and two-player tabletop role-playing games. I'm Maddy Searle, my pronouns are she, her, and I will be your guide. Today I will be playing Dragon Dowser, a solo journaling game by Hatchlings Games. At time of recording, the Dragon Dowser crowdfunding campaign is live on Kickstarter, so if you enjoyed today's episode, you can go and support this amazing game yourself. Just follow the link in the show notes to find out more. Before we talk more about the game, I just wanted to let you know that I have a Ko-Fi page where you can give one-off or monthly donations to help keep this podcast going. If you become a member and donate just £3 every month, you'll get shout-outs in the podcast credits and on social media, as well as access to behind-the-scenes content. Just follow the link in the show notes or head to ko-fi.com/snazzytapier for more information. Now, back to the game. To give you a sense of what it's about, here's the game's introduction. Our world was on the brink of collapse when the dragons arrived from a place parallel to our own. They came to help us, their unhatched eggs providing a wondrous energy able to power long-buried machines we once relied upon. Eventually, the land began to heal, and the spore storms calmed. But then we discovered the yolk of their eggs held the true power. Using the revived machines as weapons, our tyrannical rulers slaughtered countless dragons to take their precious eggs, undoing centuries of peace in the blink of an eye. Now a group of rebels called Dowsers work to save the remaining dragon eggs and restore peace to Praelar. So, my character's aim in this game is to locate abandoned dragon's eggs and return them to a sanctuary, and if I succeed before expending all my resources, I can rear the hatchling I rescued and change the future of the kingdom, which sounds utterly incredible, I must say. This game is designed to be suitable for all ages, and although there will be themes of war, they will be largely kept in the background. If anything that requires a content warning comes up during play, I will make sure to put it in the show notes. My game should last about half an hour to 60 minutes, and I'll need a deck of playing cards including jokers, a d6, a pool of tokens, and a way to record my experiences. I'll be using a regular deck of playing cards, but you will be able to get a custom deck as part of the Kickstarter campaign. Before the game begins, I need to choose from one of 4 dowsings. This will dictate which dragon egg I need to find. Each dowsing corresponds to a card suit, an element, a season, and a theme. The dowsing I'm going to choose is Hearts, which is associated with water, spring, and community. The description says, with its mother's last breath, the egg was dropped into the river where it travelled downstream, away from the hands of the Mecharch soldiers. They gave chase along the riverbank, but the water seemed to caress the egg and rage up to soak its pursuers. Their armour grew heavy and their boots sank into the mud. Soon the egg was out of sight along with any chance of promotion. Now it's time to set up my deck of cards. I need to remove the jokers and set them to one side, and do the same with the ace I have chosen from the 4 dowsings, the Ace of Hearts. Then I need to shuffle the remaining deck and deal 23 cards, adding the pre-selected ace before reshuffling. The remaining 28 cards are removed from play, and I need to place my selection of 24 cards face down in a 6x4 rectangular spread. The jokers will represent the sanctuaries, and I need to place them on the outside of the spread with plenty of space between them. Then I will use tokens to represent my resources and place a d6, which represents my character, on one of the sanctuaries, which will be my starting point. As standard, you start with 8 resources, but if you want a less challenging game, you can start with 10 or 12 resources. I'm in the mood for a relaxing game today, so I'm going to go with 12 resources. Each turn, I can move my character to an adjacent card in any direction, but every move expends a resource, apart from my first move from the sanctuary, which is free. Cards can either give me resources, expend them, or ask for a d6 roll. Once I land on a card, I flip it over and follow the prompts to the corresponding entry in the rulebook. If I land on a card that is already face up, I don't repeat the prompts, but I will still expend resources. If I run out of resources, I have abandoned the search for the egg, but when my chosen ace is revealed, I gain 6 resources and can retrace my steps back to a sanctuary for success. So, with all the preparation done, I'm ready to start playing the game. The Journal of Lillian Ingleside, Dragon Dowser. This entry marks the beginning of my journey to find a lost spring dragon egg. I have heard that it was last seen near the Sapphire River, but I have no specifics to go on. It's a rather long trek from my sanctuary here in the hills, but even the most tenuous of rumours is worth investigating in these desperate times. I have gathered as many rations and supplies as I can. I just hope there will be enough. The Mecharch soldiers grow bolder by the day, so I shall have to tread very carefully. My fellow Dowsers are counting on me. Okay, I've got my 12 resources. I've got my d6 sitting on a joker to represent the sanctuary, and I've got my 6x4 spread of cards to represent the steps on my journey. And so I'm ready to get started. And my first card from the sanctuary is free, so I don't need to spend a resource to do it. And it is the King of Hearts. It's a positive card. You land in a ravaged local settlement on the back of a male spring dragon. Together, you defend them while they rebuild. Describe the restoration. What part do you play in the settlement's future? +5 resources. Ooh, okay, that's a great start. I'll be right back with an entry for this. One of my former hatchlings, now an adolescent spring dragon, was kind enough to let me ride on his back for the first leg of my journey. When he first hatched, I had named him Swift, and he certainly lived up to his name as we sped through the skies towards the Sapphire River. He has grown considerably in the time we have spent apart, and his green dappled scales have developed a beautiful turquoise sheen which catches the sunlight. There was plenty of room on his back for me and the 2 summer hatchlings that are currently in my care, Kith and Kin. However, we landed earlier than planned when we saw a village in the valley below us, smoke rising from its ruined buildings. When I spoke with the residents, they told me that their village, Stone's Crest, had been the site of a confrontation between a summer dragon and a battalion of Mechark's soldiers. The dragon had luckily managed to escape, but not before the soldiers had laid waste to the village, trying to bring it down. Swift and I decided to stay here for a while to help defend Stone's Crest while they rebuild. We have been here for a couple of weeks now. Swift has been helping haul building materials, and I've been helping reconstruct homes as best I can, despite my lack of experience. As I was preparing to leave, Swift seemed reluctant to go, and I asked whether he wanted to stay with the villagers. He bowed his head, and I knew that Stone's Crest was meant to be his new home. He had developed a strong bond with the residents over the past fortnight, and he would certainly help them in the event of a future attack. I shall be sad to leave him behind, but I know that this is right for him, and that this is what he wants. All right, time for the second card. I need to spend a resource to move 1 space. And I am going to go down, I think. Jack of Diamonds. Another positive card. Nice. While talking with some locals, you hear rumors of a young autumn dragon separated from its family. What clues do you gather to its location? Describe the journey to find it. +3 resources. All right, I'll be back with an entry on this as soon as I can. Before leaving Stone's Crest, the local blacksmith told me he had heard the cries of a young autumn dragon in the nearby forest, and had wondered if it had been separated from its parents. As I had to travel through the forest to get closer to the Sapphire River, I thought that I could look for this young dragon while I continued my journey. As I made my way through the forest, I did manage to find some claw marks on the upper branches of a small birch tree, which showed that a young dragon had perched there recently. I also found some, how to put this delicately, fresh droppings close by, so that indicated that the dragon had been in the area recently. At last, after following a trail of footprints and hearing a few distant cries, I found the autumn dragon at last. It was a female, barely a year old, with deep maroon scales. She was cautious at first, but when I offered her some of my rations, she became much more at ease. She was content to follow me and the hatchlings as I searched for her parents' cave, but thanks to the directions the blacksmith had given me, it was easy enough to find. When we arrived, I stepped back to let the little one join its family. I saw from a distance how the mother nuzzled her child and ushered her gently back into the cave, while the father let out gentle coos of greeting. It's at times like these I'm so glad I am a dowser, and that I can help these incredible creatures in any small way. All right, next card. I think I'm going to go right for this one. So it's 2 of hearts. Oh, it's a negative one. A community you come across believes you are a Mecharch spy. They chase you out, torches burning at your heels. Why do they believe you are a spy? How do you escape? Okay, and I lose 5 resources. Well, that'll make an exciting entry, but yeah, not happy about losing 5 resources. Okay, I'll be back very soon with a new entry. Once I had reached the other side of the forest, I needed a place to rest and resupply, so I headed to the nearest small town, Juniper Green. The townsfolk were on edge, having heard from a travelling merchant that the Mecharchs were sending spies to all the towns in the valley to make sure they stayed in line. Before I was aware of this tension, I had been drinking with the locals in the tavern and foolishly mentioned that my family was from the capital, where the Mechok's power is the strongest. This, along with my unusual style of dress, aroused their suspicion. By the time I was aware of my mistake, I was being chased from the town by fearful townsfolk wielding burning torches. I managed to dart around a corner and climb through an open cottage window before the pursuing crowd could catch up to me. I lay low for a while, and I took some clothes from the wardrobe to use as a disguise. I left some money on the kitchen table as compensation for the clothes, but still felt a pang of guilt as I slipped out the cottage and made my way to the edge of town, with my hatchlings tucked inside my new cloak. At least my escape was successful, and I can continue my journey knowing that I must be more cautious with my words. Okay, card number 4 is the King of Diamonds. Ooh, it's another positive card. Despite knowing it's innocent, a male autumn dragon is being blamed for destroying livestock. Describe the true culprit. What does the male dragon reward you with for clearing its name? Plus 5 resources. Ooh, interesting. Okay, I'll gather up those resources and be back with a new entry very soon. A couple of days ago, I arrived at a small farm. After appealing to the farmer and his husband, they let me sleep in their guest room. The next day, I was told by the farmer that his sheep had been attacked overnight. He was certain that a male autumn dragon with light orange scales was to blame. He'd spotted it a week or so ago flying over the farm and thought it must have returned the night before to feed on the livestock. He was planning to gather a hunting party and drive out the offending dragon, but I insisted that I had to investigate before he took any further action. Looking at the wounds the sheep had sustained, they had clearly been made by a knife or some other metal object, not by claws or teeth. I also saw the imprints of treads in the grass and decided to follow them. The tracks led me to a derelict shed on the edge of the farm, and inside was a farming machine, sparks flying from its damaged core, with blood staining its tool attachments and wool caught between its gears. I showed my discovery to the farmer, who could not deny that his malfunctioning machine was in fact the culprit. As I left the farm, relieved that I had solved the issue, a young male autumn dragon, exactly as the farmer had described, flew down and stood in front of me. He had something in his mouth and dropped it in front of me before flying away into the distance. On a closer inspection, the dragon had left me a small sack of gems, worth quite a considerable amount of money. Without any idea how this dragon had acquired these riches, I gathered them up and continued on my way, thankful that I would have something to trade for supplies at the next town. Okay, next card. I've spent a resource to move, and it is the 2 of Spades. This is a negative card. A spore storm blows in from the west, stripping everything in its path and forcing you to abandon your supplies. Familiar landmarks are destroyed and the landscape is changed. What do you do while waiting for the storm to clear? What landmarks have been destroyed? Minus 5 resources. Well, at least I got 5 last time, so that's a plus. Okay. I'll be right back with another entry. There's been another spore storm. It truly came out of nowhere. Unfortunately, I had already begun to set up camp when the storm began, so I had to abandon half of my belongings so I could escape into a nearby cave for shelter with the hatchlings. When I returned, my tent and supplies had been swept up in the storm, broken and shattered across the fields. At least I still have the gems in my pouch that the autumn dragon gave me. I should find a town and resupply as soon as I can. A beautiful giant oak tree that has stood here for centuries was ripped apart and poisoned by the spores. I spoke a short blessing for the tree before continuing on my way. I can keep it alive in my memories, at the very least. Alright, one more resource to move, and moving down the way. That is 10 of Spades. Positive. You come across a stray wolf cub and raise it alongside your hatchlings. It eventually becomes a loyal companion. What do you call it and why? How does it interact with the dragons? Plus 2. That is frickin' adorable, and I cannot wait to write about this. Be right back. While travelling through a small woodland a few days ago, I heard a gentle whine coming from a nearby bush. On closer inspection, I discovered a stray female wolf cub hiding among the leaves, clearly hungry and lost. I offered her some food, and she eventually accepted. Kith and Kin were very curious about this cub and tried to approach, but the cub just scampered back into the undergrowth. After I encouraged the hatchlings to stay back for now, I managed to coax the cub out again and let her finish her meal. When she was done, I prepared to carry on walking, and was delighted to discover that the cub was following me along the woodland path. She has slowly become less shy of kith and kin, and now they enjoy playing together in the evenings while I build the campfire. I have called the cub Hearth, because there is nothing she loves more than curling up next to a roaring fire. Now that's all the time we have for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening to A Game of One's Own and the first part of my Dragon Dowser playthrough. By the time the next episode is out, Hatchlings Games' Kickstarter campaign will have almost ended, so make sure to check it out as soon as you can. I'm very excited to share the next part of the story with you, but before we finish up, I'd like to share with you the trailer for another TTRPG podcast I think you might enjoy. And don't forget to head to ko-fi.com/snazzytapier if you want to support A Game of One's Own. See you next time.
Are you looking for a D&D podcast with a dark side? Something more like Game of Thrones and less like Monty Python? Tale of the Manticore is part dark fantasy audio drama, part solo D&D RPG. There's no plot armor here. The dice make all the important decisions. Join me as I resurrect the excitement, wonder, and emotion of old school D&D. Made for a mature audience, Tale of the Manticore is both a fiction and a game. It's the story where chaos rolls.